Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 900. 900. Wow. September 17th, 2019, Tuesday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Well, we have a huge news day today, so no time to waste. Let's get right to it. A couple of weeks ago, I did a video where I went through and laid out all the various entrapment schemes and setups that were put onto the Trump campaign in 2016. I talked about the setups of Papadopoulos, Carter Page, Manafort, Caputo, Stone, and on and on. And I went through each and every one of these different types of setups or entrapment schemes. Well, it looks like we can add another one to the list. Another entrapment scheme we can add to the list, thanks to Judicial Watch. Judicial Watch has obtained documents. Well, I think they've had these for a while. It's just taken them a while to get through them all. And looking at these documents, comparing them to, and I think this was the witness testimony, Saylor's testimony to the Mueller special counsel. And of course, then when you take a look at the Mueller report and you compare all this stuff, what you find is that Saylor, Felix Saylor, and let me give the background for those of you who are new to my channel or haven't been following the story or a little cloudy on everything. Felix Saylor is, of course, believed to be source D and E in the dossier. He's the one who many allege came up with the PP-Gate story, although there's other people who've also been accused of that. But that's just one thing. He's also the person who was focused on in the Mueller report as being a key person who was involved in this alleged deal to build this Trump Tower in Moscow. And so the backstory on Felix Saylor is he was involved in criminal activity about 20 some odd years ago with a kind of a Russian group of gangsters here in the U.S. He was being investigated, and so the Department of Justice decided they could turn him. And Andrew Weisass was the attorney working on the case for the DOJ. His boss was Loretta Lynch. So they turned Saylor against his accomplices. He became a witness for the state and at the same time became an FBI informant. Then we learn from the Mueller report that not only was he an FBI informant for many years now, cooperating with the government on pointing out various Russians who might be involved in criminal activity, but it turns out he's also been a source for intelligence agencies, primarily the CIA, going back many years. So he is a FBI informant and a CIA asset and has been for a very long time. A very long time. Keep that in mind. So what do we learn about what he was now? Remember, the Mueller report mentions Saylor over 100 times. Over 100 times. And the whole thing that you get in the Mueller report about Saylor, of course, we know he was a friend of Michael Cohen. And he and Cohen were the ones who were trying to get a Trump Tower in Moscow because they both were going to line their pockets with finder's fees, essentially. Fees, money they were going to skim off the top of the deal. They were going to make a lot of money. Saylor was going to try to use his Russian connections. Cohen was going to use his connections to Trump to try to put this deal together for a Trump Tower in Moscow. But Trump was never driving that at all. It was Cohen who was coming to Trump. And the person who was pushing Cohen and the person who was making the contacts in Russia, contacting Cohen, trying to push the deal, making all the statements, having the press conferences, having the setting up the meetings, trying to set up meetings. The guy who was pushing and trying to do all of this to get the Trump Tower in Moscow was Saylor. Was Felix Saylor. He was trying to be the guy who was trying to put all this together. And he's an FBI informant and a CIA asset. And he's the guy trying to put together the Trump Tower in Moscow deal. And they list all the various activities that he engaged in. trying to set up meetings, pushing Cohen, trying to get Cohen to talk to Trump, try to get Trump to do it. Here's what we got. I got these guys. Let's put him in contact. Let's have this conference call. We need to have this meeting. Let's go here. Let's go there. Saylor was pushing the entire thing. Never in the Mueller report, despite the fact that they mention his name over 100 times and dedicate a lot of ink to the Trump Tower deal and Saylor and Cohen, never in the Mueller report do they ever mention that Saylor is an FBI informant. Nor do they mention he's a CIA asset. They leave that part out. It's not possible that they didn't know, because Andrew Wiseass was heading up the Mueller team. And it was Andrew Wiseass who recruited Saylor to be an FBI informant over 20 years ago. They knew the whole time. They knew the whole time. And who is Saylor been pictured with on several occasions? Slick Willie. Slick Willie. 2 or 3 good photographs of smiling Slick Willie and Saylor. We know that he has we know that he's a Clinton supporter. We know that he donated to the DNC or to Clinton. He's basically a Clintonite. Yet he's pushing Cohen to try to get this Moscow deal. And that occupies a lot of ink in the Mueller report, and they dedicate a lot of energy to it. It was one of the main things that we're going to try to use to show the Trump-Russia collusion thing. Yet it was Saylor who was pushing all of it. Pushing all of it. And they knew the whole time that he was an FBI informant and a CIA asset. So here's another person connected to the Clintons, connected to the intelligence community, connected to the FBI, trying to entrap Cohen and Trump in this Moscow Trump Tower real estate deal. Even though there would have been nothing illegal about it, even if they did it, which they didn't. But Trump was never hot on this idea. It was Cohen who continued to push him, and it was Saylor who was pushing Cohen. Sure looks like another perfect example of another entrapment scheme. Just add that to the list of the ones we know about, and probably others we don't. Thank you, Judicial Watch. Well done. Well, it looks like we have another epic fail by Andy McCabe and his lawyers. So, McCabe's legal team, led by Mr. Bromwich, who also was representing Blasey Ford, McCabe's, and he's also part of the lawfare group, by the way. McCabe's legal team told Politico journalist, so-called journalist, Natasha Bertrand, and keep in mind, Politico is just, again, very, very connected to the lawfare group. Lawfare uses Politico as their, essentially their press department. So McCabe's legal team told Politico's journalist, Natasha Bertrand, that former Obama administration officials were lined up to speak as character and fact witnesses on behalf of Andy McCabe. And this was just after McCabe's legal team had leaked this 11-page letter that McCabe's lawyers had sent to the DOJ. And of course the letter was titled, quote, "Reasons Not to Prosecute Andrew McCabe." Now the letter named well-known liars such as John Brennan, Susan Rice, James Clapper, and Eric Holder, and Mary McCord, as well as a half a dozen others, who all were in some way involved in the Trump coup. And these are all people that they mention in the letter who would testify in the defense of Andy McCabe. But then, just a few hours after writing her article, Bertrand had to walk back what she said in her original story. It turns out that Mr. Potato Head John Brennan, along with Susan Rice and Eric Holder, will not be testifying as character witnesses for McCabe. So basically, McCabe's legal team lied in their letter to the DOJ, assuming that the letter was even sent to the DOJ. It's just as likely that this was the whole thing was a media ploy, and the letter never even happened. Or, if they sent the 11-page letter, it did not include anything about high-profile former Obama administration officials wanting to testify on behalf of McCabe. Because if you read the letter, which I did, it doesn't look like the type of letter that a good attorney would send the Department of Justice to make a defensive case for their client on why their client should not be prosecuted. You might put in there all the reasons why you think, but you probably wouldn't put in there, oh, and by the way, if you try to take my client to trial, which is exactly what it says, if you take my client to trial, he will be represented both character and fact witnesses, such as, and they literally list about a dozen Obama administration, high-level Obama administration officials, including Brennan, Rice, Clapper, and Holder, and Mary McCord, and others, some names you would maybe not be familiar with, but they were all number 1, number 2, number 3 at DOJ or FBI. And so this is in the letter. Now, if you're the DOJ and you get a letter like that from McCabe's attorney, I wouldn't take that very well, because it's almost like a challenge. Like, you better not take us to court, or we're going to bring in all these character witnesses to testify on McCabe's behalf and make you look really bad. Well, the first problem that you have with these people was John Brennan's a known liar. Susan Rice, obviously a known liar. She's the one who went out on Sunday morning TV on three different shows to sell the Benghazi fake news story. We know that John Brennan lied about wiretapping members of the Senate. We know that Eric Holder was held in contempt for lying. We know that Clapper, of course, lied his ass off. Remember that? We don't collect, not wittingly. Do you collect data on millions of Americans? Not wittingly. Later had to come back and walk that back, because they do. All these people liars, all these people part of the coup. And remember, the DOJ is currently investigating all of this. And they're probably looking at it going, what? You're going to threaten me with Brennan? He's in our target right now of our investigation, along with Rice, along with Clapper. And of course, if they want to go back far enough, they can go back to Holder very easily. If you're talking about the spying and the private contractors and things like that, that goes back to 2012, as we've been told. That would be Holder. Of course, Mary McCord, she would have been the one that would have had to have signed off and reviewed the Woods procedure. And I think she may have signed off, one of the people was signatory of one of the warrants, the FISAs on Carter Page. So I don't know what's going on here. I don't know if this letter actually was sent to the DOJ, or if they just leaked it to their mouthpiece at the Politico, this so-called journalist Bertrand, so that she could publish it, so they could use it for media purposes. So I'm not sure if this letter was actually sent or not, or if the letter that they claim that they sent is actually the one that we read when you read it, on the internet, where they posted it. Essentially, why would they? Why would they leak it? The DOJ certainly didn't leak it. So why is McCabe's attorneys leaking the letter they sent to the DOJ? You think something like that would be confidential. But no, they wanted this out in the media. They wanted it reported on. It's a PR strategy. But it backfired, because they dropped the names of these people before they bothered to contact them and even ask them if they would be willing to testify on McCabe's behalf. So as soon as Brennan and Rice and Clapper and Holder and McCord and all these people hear their name dropped, or see their names in this letter saying that they're going to come and testify on McCabe's behalf, is not only character witnesses but fact witnesses. That's the last thing these people want. Can you imagine that? Because when you go testify in court to be a character witness, you too can be questioned, because you're there as a person of good character. And so your character can then be questioned, which is exactly what happens. You go try to testify as a character witness for someone in a criminal trial, or even in a civil case. I promise you that once the attorneys on the other side get your name that you're going to be one of the witnesses, the very first thing they do is a big fat background check on you. They hand it down to their private investigating staff, and they get every bit of information they can get on you. So that when you go up there to testify as a character witness, anything you've ever done, you ever had a ticket, you ever got a DUI, you ever did anything that there's any type of a paper trail of, a police report, a secondhand witness, or anything else a claim by a friend, by a family member, anything like that. It will be brought out. And your character will be challenged as a character witness. So the last thing that Mr. Potato Head, Susan Rice, James Clapper, Eric Holder, Mary McCord, and others want is to be sitting there, first of all, as character witnesses and fact witnesses for Andy McCabe, especially when they know it's going to result in their being scrutinized very carefully. And all of these people will be exposed as having lied publicly, caught lying. Rice, caught lying. Brennan, caught lying. Clapper, caught lying. Eric Holder, caught lying. Oh my. So, after they see their names, they obviously had their spokesperson or someone contact this so-called journalist, Miss Bertrand, and say, hey, I don't know where you got the information. I was going to testify on behalf of Andy McCabe, but it ain't happening. I ain't going to do it. And I don't know where you heard about that, but not from me. So she ended up having to write a second story and retract the names of these so-called witnesses. Mr. Bromwich is a dirty player, but he's not an idiot. No attorney in his right mind would purposely send a letter to the Department of Justice and play that card, and especially play that card naming these high-level players without saying that they're going to testify on their client's behalf, without ever checking with the people to see if they actually would. That, not even a bad lawyer would make that kind of a mistake. So it wasn't a mistake by Bromwich. Not a mistake at all. It can only be one of two things. Either A, this letter that was given to this journalist was to be published was not the same letter that they sent to the DOJ. It certainly didn't include all these names. That's my suspicion. Or there was no letter sent at all. It was all just a media. Obviously, when you get high-profile lawyers like Mr. Bromwich and others, they don't just have a legal team. They have a PR team of lawyers, and they manage the PR. This looks like it came right out of the PR department of the legal staff. This is a made for TV and radio and internet PR story is what it is. You see how dirty these people are? And quite the joke. Now, Andy McCabe and his legal team look quite stupid because they named all these people, so they're going to testify, and now they have to come back and retract that they won't. And again, a lawyer like Bromwich does not make this kind of mistake. This was not a mistake. This was some sort of a media PR stunt. Public relations stunt. These people are dirty, dirty, dirty dogs. Well, it looks like Madam Botox, Nancy Pelosi, has a conservative challenger in her 12th district in California, San Francisco. And her name is Deanna Lorraine. I watched her campaign commercial. Well, let me tell you, she is a huge Trump supporter. On this campaign ad, she gives you a couple clips of live speeches and then some studio stuff. And in a couple of these, she's wearing a MAGA hat. Yes, that's all right. She's in San Francisco giving speeches wearing a MAGA hat. And she is pretty young, probably late 20s, maybe early 30s. She's extremely attractive, by the way. Very attractive. Pretty young. Huge Trump supporter. Her name's Deanna Lorraine. I'm going to Google her. Deanna, D-E-A-N-N-A, Lorraine, L-O-R-R-A-I-N-E. She is challenging Pelosi. I don't know that a conservative has any chance of getting elected in San Francisco, but things are pretty bad in San Francisco. And, you know, she will have a tremendous amount of ammunition. Let's put it that way. She certainly will have no problem putting together good campaign ads and making a very strong case. But, you know, I think the people out there in Sissy-Co are so far gone to the left. I mean, so far gone. I don't know if you could even. I don't know if they can be reached at this point. But I'm glad she's given it a hell of a try, and I wish her a lot of luck. And I hope she defeats Pelosi in the 12th district in California. It'll be great to see. Wow, what a victory that would be. Man, if you can defeat Pelosi, if that happens in 2020, not only will we win the White House, we'll win back the House of Representatives, we'll add seats in the Senate, and it will be a huge landslide. I mean, big landslide in all three branches. I mean, in both branches. Both the executive, the president will be a landslide, and the Congress will be a landslide. This will be kind of what you call the bellwether. If you defeat Nancy Pelosi in San Francisco, that probably is going to set the tone for what's going to happen across the country. It would be epic, beyond epic. It would be biblical. Cheryl Atkinson has filed a FOIA to get the records from the Bureau of Prisons on Jeffrey Epstein, only to get a reply telling her that all prison documents related to Epstein are being withheld from the public. Being withheld from the public. That's right. Unbelievable. We're not going to see any of the records from the Bureau of Prisons on Jeffrey Epstein. Special case. So they're going to withhold all records from the public and from Cheryl Atkinson. Something tells me she's not going to let that go. I see her going to court, just like Judicial Watch does. She'll just go to court, and a couple years from now, she'll probably win the case, but by then, it probably won't matter that much. Let's see. We have, we have the Michelle Obama getting ready to go out on tour. If you would like to go watch Michael Obama and on her tour and listen to her speak, you can get a ticket for, well, the tickets will go up to $4,200 per ticket. So something tells me that Michael does not want any, say, middle class or lower middle class or poor folks at her speeches. She only wants big money people, big money people, because you gotta have a lot of money to fork over $4,200 to listen to Michael Obama berate you for a couple of hours. My God, you couldn't pay me $4,200 to go watch her give a speech, or him give a speech, whatever she is. It is. You couldn't pay me. There's not enough money. I'm telling you right now. I know you think I'm joking. No, $4,200. No. Yeah, I don't need $4,200 so bad that I would do it and have to sit through a Michael Obama speech. I wouldn't do it. It's not worth it. But if you think it's worth it, go ahead. Whip out that $4,200 and you can watch Michael give a speech. Well, we have the rotten reverend, and this thing that's going down in Italy. I mentioned it a couple of days ago, and I'm sure some of you are following this. Of course, the rotten reverend is in Italy, telling the Italian media that her email scandal was one of the strangest, most absurd events in American political history. Let me tell you what, I've been looking at this thing now for a couple of days. I know the Clintons very well. Everything they do is staged. Anytime you see Clintons, other than when just someone catches them on camera, but whenever you see something that's produced by the Clintons, it is staged. And this is totally produced by Hillary. So let's look at the facts. The Right Reverend Clinton decides to go to Italy just at the same time that one of the biggest news stories in Italy is this Oceanero case. And the Oceanero case, of course, is about this businessman, Mr. Oceanero, and his sister, who own these companies. They own two in the U.S. And they say that there was a plot. They're being accused of launching cyber attacks on various public officials. That's the charge facing them. But their contention is that they were being set up. And their contention is that there was a plot to plant Hillary Clinton emails on two of the servers at Mr. Oceanero's U.S. companies. And then the Italian government, cooperating with the Obama administration, was going to then contact the FBI. The FBI would then go look at the servers, find Hillary's emails, and then arrest Mr. Oceanero and tie him to Trump to force Trump out of office. This is what Oceanero's claims are. And this is a major story in Italy right now. It's on the major headline, front page story. You still have the story also that's making news, and it's been making news for a while in Italy, about the curiousness of people in Italy about their role, their government's role in the Spygate in general, and their connection to Mifsud. So you have the Mifsud thing that won't go away, that continues to linger in the Italian press, and then you have the Oceanero case, which is front page news and has been for a couple of weeks. It's a big deal in Italy. A lot of people talking about it. So here and remember, the Oceanero said there were three principals that were behind it who were working with the Italian government and Italian intelligence to set this whole thing up. And they name Obama, Brennan, and the rotten reverend as being the three principals who were driving this operation against them that was, again, to be a way to get at Trump and force him out. And, of course, take down Oceaneros at the same time for being friends and supporters, or at least supporters of Trump. I don't think they're friends. I think they were supporters. So, anyway, what do you think the odds are? What do you think the odds are that the rotten Reverend Clinton would just happen to show up in Italy at the same time that all of this stuff is going down with the Oceaneros, with this Spygate connection to Misfits still lingering around and people talking about it, and still government hearings going on as far as what they can release and not release in regards to what their government had to do with Misfits and Spygate. So you got that going on, and then at the same time, you got this art exhibit that just shows up out of nowhere. And its art exhibit is essentially a desk that looks identical to like the president's desk, the President of the United States desk. It's basically a presidential desk, and on it is the Rotten Reverend Clinton, 60 pages of Rotten Reverend Clinton emails. So she just happens to show up in Italy at the same time that this Oceanero case is making big news, that the Misfits case is still being debated in Congress, at the same time that they got this art exhibit, which, you know, has this desk, which looks like identical to the one in the Oval Office, and these Hillary emails. She just happens to show up just when all these things are happening. I'm sure it's purely coincidence. Purely. And so what do you get when you look at the pictures? And you could tell she was scheduled to be there. She didn't just show up, because she walks up and sits down behind the desk. They got the camera crews. They got the two artists who put this on. And she's sitting there and she reads through. She's getting all this camera time. She's dressed in her classic Chairman Mao muumuu. I mean, who dresses this woman, by the way? So this entire thing is totally staged. It's Hillary sitting what looks like, and the photos that's been released are professional photographer photos. They're not people with their camera phones. These are professional photographer photos. She's sitting at this desk. She's smiling. She's got her hands on the desk where all these emails are, and then they got a caption down there. And of course, her caption is her quote to the Italian media, which is that her email scandal was one of the strangest, most absurd events in American political history. And she goes on to say that, well, I've read through them. Anybody can read through them. They're all right here, and there's nothing here. 60 pages. She doesn't talk about the 33,000 pages of emails or 33,000 emails that she deleted. She doesn't talk about the 6 devices that she destroyed. Doesn't talk about any of that. I'm telling you, the Rotten Reverend didn't just stumble into Italy at the same time that all these events are happening. This was totally staged. Totally staged. So much news we're just not going to get to it all. It's unfortunate, because these are all big stories. Some of them will have to be picked up tomorrow. We're down to 5 minutes. Let's squeeze in this last story. It has to do with this latest allegation against Kavanaugh. And the guy making this allegation we now know is this Max Stier, S-T-I-E-R. He is behind the latest Kavanaugh smear. Now, who is Stier? Well, he is the president of a left-wing pro-Hillary activist group called Partnership for Public Service. And what are they? They're a left-wing. He's a lawyer, and he's a left-wing activist. They activate people to go do things in support of the leftist agenda and the Rotten Reverend Clinton. Stier is also a former lawyer for Hillary Clinton and a donor to Hillary, Obama, and the DNC. But let's dig in a little bit deeper to Stier, because this is actually quite ironic. His claim at this point, from what we can tell in the New York Times story, which they've now retracted, is that he was there when Kavanaugh, with some help from his friends in a drunken state, pushed his pecker into Deborah Ramirez's face, or someone's face, some girl's face. Ramirez, her story is that she was on a 7-day drunk binge and can't remember anything, and the other 3 people they interviewed who were given as possible witnesses around her say it did not happen. But anyway, Stier is claiming that Kavanaugh, in a drunken state, pushed his pecker into the face of some woman who apparently we don't know. She doesn't know. She refuses. I think this person refuses to even come forward. Doesn't want to be involved in it, and apparently is not supportive of his allegation. It's all been pretty much retracted by the New York Times anyway. But let's dig into Steyer. This is where it's ironic. Remember, he's trying to make the case that Kavanaugh stuck his pecker in some woman's face with some help from his friends. Steyer was one of the attorneys representing Bill Clinton in the Paula Jones case. And what was Paula Jones' claim? Paula Jones' claim was that Bill Clinton whipped out his pecker and revealed himself to her. And, of course, we know that Steyer lost that case for Bill Clinton because Paula Jones won that case. Clinton lost his law license as a result of that case and had to pay Paula Jones $850,000. So Steyer was representing Slick Willie in a case where Slick Willie was being accused of, displaying his pecker to Paula Jones. And now he's making the argument that Kavanaugh exposed his pecker to this woman. Of course, he has no evidence. The difference is, in the case of Paula Jones, she had evidence. And what was her evidence? Well, she informed the court that she could identify Slick Willie's pecker because she said it had a very unusual characteristic. It was bent. Slick Willie has a crooked pecker. A crooked pecker. Slick Willie has a crooked pecker. That's what she told the court. She said, she goes, I can prove that he did this to me. I can prove it because I can describe his penis. And she did. She described it in detail. In detail. She described the right angle, if you know what I'm talking about. The crooked pecker. That's really what won her that case. And now, Steyer's making the argument that Kavanaugh whipped out his pecker in this woman's face, and he witnessed it. That's what he's saying. Now, keep this in mind. He also represented the Right Reverend Clinton in the Whitewater case. He represented Hillary in her Whitewater case. These are some dirty, dirty people, man. Dirty people. You know something? The last couple of days, it just sort of dawned on me that, you know what happened to the Rotten Reverend? She lost that night in 2016, and she said to herself, I am going to destroy Trump. I'm going to make sure that every day of his presidency is misery. I'm going to destroy him and everyone around him. Because all these things that you see happening, you can all trace back to the Right Reverend Clinton. I've said for a long time she was the mastermind of the plot. Why do I say that? I say that because I read the transcript of the Christopher Steele deposition. Christopher Steele was asked, what were you hired to do? Who hired you and what were you hired to do? He said he was hired by a law firm, that would be Perkins Coie, representing Hillary Clinton and her campaign. And he said the reason he was hired was to acquire evidence that could be used against Trump to challenge him if he won the election. He didn't say I was hired to put together dirt, smear on Trump to help Hillary win so it could be launched as the October surprise to defeat Trump and help Hillary win, because by that time that wasn't in play anymore. He said that he was hired to put together information that could be used by Hillary Clinton and her legal team to challenge the results of the election if Trump won. The coup. I'm telling you, the Rotten Reverend Clinton is the mastermind behind a lot, if not most all, of all the stuff that you're seeing, whether it's against Kavanaugh and anybody around Trump, his family, anyone. The Rotten Reverend Clinton decided on the night that she lost the election that she was going to destroy Trump and that she was going to destroy anyone that supported him, and that she was going to make his presidency misery. And that's her goal for the rest of her life until she runs again in 2020. Thank you so much for tuning in. See you guys tomorrow. Bye.